So in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how you can make a button clicker game utilizing scripting in castlemakeandplay. So I'm going to be using castle.xyz editor. You can just type it into any web browser, but you can also use mobile and do the same thing that I'm doing on mobile. It's the same thing. It's just I find it a bit easier to use the editor, what is basically just a PC version of the same scripting on mobile. So feel free to use either one. And all you have to do to use the editor is just log in, and once you logged in to your castle account, then all you need to do now is just open up any deck on your phone or your mobile device, and you'll be able to use it on the PC as well. So let's first make our card now. So now once you're on Castle on your mobile device, all you're going to do is you're going to create a new deck, and then we're going to make this clicker game on the deck. Before we start using the editor, we have to make a few prefabs and like actors to code on, and then we have to set up quite a bit of things. There is a more advanced ways that I don't know fully where you can do more coding than actual being on Castle. But for now, we're going to be doing basically 60% of the work on Castle to set it up, and then code the rest on the editor. So now we're going to just make the main features of a clicker game. Like we're going to make a button, the text counter, and we're also going to make a whole shop system with an add clicks like option you can buy, a multiplier, and an auto clicker. We're also going to make a leaderboard and a system to move like a camera from the tapping system to the shop so you can see both sides. Okay, so I finished now creating all the features and things in Castle, and there's a lot I have to go over, but I'm gonna go over it slowly. I just added everything now because you can always add this first. It doesn't have to be that detailed or like made beautifully. It just has to be there because you need the skeleton to actually build the function on. So firstly, I'm using $sign on this. This is a text actor where you get over here, and then once you place down the text actor, you just must rename it to $taps, and not specifically taps, but that's what we're going to make the variable that is going to show the amount of taps you have. And we put $, there because $, and then the variable name shows the amount of the variable on that actual text actor. So we did the same thing for this at the bottom. This is just an indicator that shows how much of each variable you have to the player, because we're going to make 3 different things. Like I said, we're going to have an add tap, a ×2 tap, and a auto clicker. So as you can see in the bottom, if we go into this, it shows for each variable, for 3 variables, what's going to be add, multi, and auto, but I'll get to that a bit later on. So after you've gone that, you just want to make sure you have the following actors. What's the text actor that I was talking about now? Button's gonna be trying to make it big so it's easy to tap, and we're gonna have a camera. This is basically gonna be the camera system where we're gonna just say it must move to another position, and then that's how you're going to be able to see the shop one. Because if you press play now, of course you can't see the shop, but once you press the shop icon here, it will move this actor, and then it's going to move it over here so you can see the shop icon. And then we have a back button here, just a text actor. Once someone taps that, then it just takes them back to the main tap section by just moving the same camera. And this is just a normal actor that we're going to code later on. Also for this, make sure to make it relative to camera on the thing. All you need to do is just scroll down, press relative to camera, make sure it's on. We just want this to stay on the UI of the player. When it moves left and right, it just makes it a little bit easier to see in the shop how much of that variables you have. And another thing you can do to make it a bit easier for yourself, I'm just gonna fork this taps thing So you can see how much tabs you have in the shop. I'm going to make it white, and then I'm just going to put it underneath here. And when you have a variable, you of course put the $, like I said, and then the variable name. But if you say, let's say tabs, colon, and then if you add a space in between it, so you separate it by using that space, then you can see the variable name and the normal text next to each other. It'll be making more sense once we actually make the variables, so these aren't just $signs no more. Make it a little bit smaller. And then lastly, we just have a few buttons that when we tap the +1, it's going to add +1 tap for every time we tap the button. So instead of adding 1 every time, it'll add 2, and then you buy it again, it'll add 3. And for the 2 times, every time you tap, it's going to multiply your normal taps plus the added taps. So if your normal taps is 1 and you have no added taps, it's just going to times 1 by 2. What is going to be 2? But if you have 1 extra tap again, it's going to be 1 plus 2 equals 2. And then 2 times the multiplier, what is 2 times 2? It's going to be 4. And you can keep on adding the multiplier to be higher, and it adds it by 1. So you can have a 3 times multiplier, 4, etc. And then the auto clicker, when you tap it, it just adds 1 every single time. Every time you buy it, it adds a higher number every second. So it'll be 2 taps per second, 3 taps per second, etc. Also, I'm going to add the costs for the buttons by just going in the text and just saying it above. I'm just using the $, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just to make it a little bit easier. Make this 100. I'm going to make the multiplier 1000, and then the auto clicker is going to be 500 taps. So it's going to look a bit like this. I'll move it a bit down. I'm going to make the back a bit smaller here. So we have that set up. Now we're going to add the tags. We're only going to add a few tags to some actors, and we're adding these tags mainly because we want to make sure the code is able to reference between different actors and tell them specific things, or just reference them to change them and things like that. So the few tags we're going to add is just going to the button. The first tag we're going to add is on the camera, because for the camera we're just going to have a camera tag. This is just because when you tap the shop icon or the back button, then it has to tell the camera to move this area or that area. So it just enables that. So after we do that, we just need to add 1 tag, and that tag is going to be to the camera. I'm going to name it camera. This is just because the shop icon and the back button, it just needs to tell the camera to move left or right, and that's why it needs a tag so it could be referenced. So now after we've done that, we nearly get to coding. We first have to make the variables an actual thing. So as you can see, it says $taps. We're going to press on the settings icon, and then we're going to make 4 total deck variables. So we're going to make the first variable what's going to be called taps. You can change the name, but you have to also remember to change the text icon and the name of that to be the same as your variable. So we're going to add a variable called taps. Then we're going to say persistent per player, and this is just going to be our taps variable. As you can see, they're all updated because the variable initial value is 0. Everything updates to 0. Then we're going to make 3 more, one called add, and make sure it's persistent per player. This is because you want the data to save when someone else leaves or resets castle or anything like that, so they keep their progress and their data and it doesn't reset. So add is just going to be our add variable for when someone buys in the shop, the add button. And then we're going to make one called multi. It's for the multiplier one. We're going to have to make this 1 for it to work, because if it multiplies by 0, the total output's going to be 0. So we have to make it for 1. You'll see a bit later on. And then auto for our auto clicker. So now after you've done all that, should look like this. I'm just going to go back to this text, and then I'm going to add text just to make sure the player knows what is what, just by saying add multi and auto. So then it ends up looking like that. So now that you've done that, you want to move over to your editor or on castle for every single actor. All you need to do is just go on the actor, then go to the logic section, press on plus or script, and then over here is your text box where you can tap on, and then you can write your same script that I'm going to be writing in here for different actors. And to remove it, you just press this minus. You can do this on all the actors if you only can use mobile, of course. But to use the editor, you just want Castle to be open in the background. But for what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to just keep it open on my phone so we can do active testing after we made certain scripts. So let's start with the first script. This is just going to be the button tapping script, and we're on the button now. You just need to click on it and then you'll see here. But basically for the button, it's quite simple. I should eventually make a beginner tutorial how to script in Castle from the beginner point, but I'm also a beginner at coding, so I'm gonna walk us through this slowly. First, there's something called functions in Castle, and functions are basically new logic blocks or kind of a folder of things that it's supposed to do, the instructions and actions inside of it, and it's just the exterior part of it. So for every single new function, you're gonna have to say function, and then once you create a function, you can now say what the name of the function is. There is, I think, 4 functions on Castle that's already built in. We're going to be using those ones, the built-in ones, and we're not going to be creating much functions. There is a onCreate function, an onUpdate function, an onMessage function, and I think there might be some other built-in ones, but that's all I know of. We're going to be using the onMessage function. So we're going to use the onMessage function, and we're doing this because onMessage is the closest thing you can get to onTapped, as what we're going to use for all the triggers of all the functions and things in our deck. Because when you tap something happens. That's what we're going to be using for tapping the button, for tapping to get to the shop, and then tapping by on the actor, and then tapping back into the tapping section. So basically all you say is just on message. Make sure message is capital letters, and then we're going to do bracket message in lowercase, and then comma space triggering capital actor. And basically the things we say in the brackets is kind of simple, but the message is just to make sure that the message is sent through to the other actor. The triggering actor kind of just makes sure both actors know what the same data is, and then follows through with acting out the function. We're going to be copy and pasting a lot in here, what is also another benefit, and it's just a lot more efficient. We probably won't have to type this again. Then we're going to go, after this we're going to press enter, and then as you can see it creates a small space there, and that is just to make sure that the next code that we're typing now is within the function on message and indicates after it receives a message what we're going to be doing in the actual Castle deck in a bit. But once it receives a message, it's going to act out the function within on message. So the thing we're going to be doing is creating a local variable, you could say, or active variable. Now we're going to make it outcome, and we're going to say it's going to be equal to something. So basically outcome is just a word we're using. I say outcome because this is going to be the outcome, and it's going to be modified with a variable. But you're just going to say outcome equals, and now it's just the equal just mean the variable equals something. So outcome is going to equal 1 plus, and then we're going to say the add, because 1 is going to be the base value every single time you tap it, and we're going to start the add at 0 so it won't change anything. And then we're going to get the add variable by saying deck variables dot, and then you're going to say the actual name of the variable, what is add, as we made it in our deck. So basically it's 1 plus the add variable, what can be 1, 2, 3, whatever. And we're going to put this in brackets as we have to make the multiplier now. So putting it in brackets just makes, for basic math, the things in brackets is going to be done first, and the things out of bracket is going to be done later on. So now we're going to use the star sign, what is called the asterisk, and this is multiplication in coding because you can't say x, as x is just a letter, so it uses the asterisk. I type it by holding shift and pressing 8, but it might be different for you, or you can find on your keyboard it's a special symbol, but this means multiplication. And then we're going to space, and now we're going to use the same multi-deck variable that we have in our deck by doing the same thing we did with the add, by saying deck variables dot multi, as multi is the name of our variable. And then we're going to press enter, and then after that we're going to say deck variables taps what is the taps deck variable we have in our deck. And we're doing this part because we did the outcome by doing the multiplication and we got the number now. Now we just need to add it to our deck variable taps. Deck variables is going to equal deck variable taps, because we're going to make this basically relative to the actual variable, and you can see that by looking at the actual castle. And what we're doing now is just creating the relative. So you can say deck variables plus taps equal deck variable plus taps, and then we're going to say plus outcome, because outcome, we named this process. This is basically the calculation we do here, and then we say here at the bottom it's just adding it to the taps now. So after we've done that, we're gonna now add something. I'm gonna add it now. What is after the on message, we need an if condition. So we're gonna press enter and make an if condition, and this is the same if condition as in the normal game, but this is going to be specifically for the messages. So we're just going to tab these two to be inside the if condition. If you don't have tab, you can just space it a lot. And this is for the message. So on the actual game, we're going to make a specific logic there that's going to say when tapped, it's going to send a specific message to the actor. And all this is doing is just checking if the message is a specific kind, then it's going to execute this specific process. So let's quickly go back to Castle now. So on Castle, all we need to do is we're going to be using the same specific message for all the actors that can be interacted with. So we're going to go into the logic, we're going to create a new rule, and we're just going to say when tapped. Then it's going to send a message to the script. So we're just going to say send message to script, tap on that, and then the message I'm going to be using, you can make it anything really. I'm going to say action, and then we're going to have to remember that. I'm going to copy this same rule, and then everything that can be tapped to perform like an action or a function, we're going to put this same rule on. So I'm going to do it for the icon, or the leaderboard icon as well, for the back button, and then for the 3 shop icons where you can buy the upgrades. So that's all we need to do. Now going back to the scripting, we're going to go back to the if, and now we made it action with a capital letter. We have to remember that as well. It's case sensitive, but we're going to say if message, and it's a message that was sent to the script that we're talking about, equals, and we're going to use 2 equal sign. This makes sure it is equal to the specific message in scripting, as if you made it greater than equal, then it would basically just mean greater than equal, and this doesn't work for this scenario. So I'm going to make it double equal, just means if it's completely equal to it, and we're going to use quotation mark. This basically creates a string, and a string is just text or code that is not an integer or a number, but is basically plain English that is just used within the code. So for the plain English we used is action. So if message equals action, then, and we just say then for every if function to say after it's done checking that condition, then it's going to perform the process, and then it's going to perform this. With code and also Lua code, it has to end eventually. The process can't be infinite or just not end. So we're going to press enter on the last one. We're going to type out end. So this end specifically only ends the if function. We also need a second ems to end the function on message. So we're going to press enter again and then say end. You can tell you're doing it right if it creates a space here, because as you can see, the if and the end have the same amount of space. So it basically means there are one that it ends. So this end basically ends all the highlighted, and then this end ends everything. So now this alone is basically the first script you have created. And if you're getting confused, hopefully later on the tutorial it'll become a little bit easier to understand. But now that we've done that, we can do our first test. We can go back to our castle deck. You can also on the editor side press play here, and it'll open it on your Windows or whatever you're using it on separately, but I like to use it a bit on my phone more. You're gonna press play, and then we can test it now. So if we tap the button you can see the number goes up, and this is our first tapping system. So basically, if you don't want upgrades, leaderboards, or anything like that, you just made a tapping game or a clicker game. Well done. But now we're going to get to the bit more advanced section to add the more features and stuff like that to our tapping game. So the next thing we're going to do is make sure the shop icon button takes you to the shop. Firstly, before we go on to code the shop icon, we have to go on the camera, and on the camera we're going to create a function again and say on create this time. Basically, on create just means when it's created, it's going to run this function, and they're going to say double brackets. For every function name, you need double brackets to basically make it work, and in most cases doesn't matter if you put anything in it or not. After that, we're going to press enter, and we need to make castle follow the camera actor, as it's going to be just the actor that determines what we can see. Then after that, we're going to press enter and say my colon follow with camera, and this just makes it to be followed with camera, and then double brackets, and then we're going to say end. So all that we're doing here is just making the actor get followed with camera. And then now we go to our shop icon. On the shop icon, we just gonna say the same on message thing, because when it's tapped, the function is gonna run. So we're gonna go back to the button. We're gonna copy the first part here, function on message, message triggering actor. If message equals action, then we're gonna Control C and then go to your icon and then paste it here. And after that, we're gonna press enter, and the specific action we want the shop icon to do is tell the closest actor with the tag camera. So we're gonna say castle dot closest actor with tag, and then make sure actor with tag is capital, and then brackets. We're gonna do the quotation marks again because we're talking about English basically here, and then we're gonna type in the same thing we made the tag, what is camera. Then we're gonna go out the brackets. We're gonna say dot layout dot x, and basically the dot layout dot x is just the x position we're gonna be changing of that specific actor, and we add the dot after the bracket when we're telling a specific actor. If we were to do this for not telling an actor but telling themselves to do it, it would look like this, and you'd say my instead to reference to themselves. So this would be the function for telling the actor themselves, but because another actor now is telling a certain actor, we say basically tell closest actor with tag camera dot layout dot x, and then we're gonna say equals. We're just modifying the layout, so we're gonna modify it from right now what it is 0. We made it in the middle of our deck, so now we're gonna make it 10. It's gonna modify its certain x position to 10 now instead of the original one what was 0, so it moves it to show the shop, and that's all we need to do. We're just gonna say end and then end to end both of these things. So basically what it is doing, if we go back on our deck, we make sure that the camera is not visible so you can't see it, but basically once we tap the shop icon, it just moves the player to 10. As you can see a bit, you can see of the background here, so I'm gonna go back and make it 10.5. So because it automatically is synced with castle, every change you make on the editor syncs to the castle deck. So now when I press it, it's a bit off again, so I'm gonna make it 2.5, and then there we go. Once you tap it, it works normally. We also need to make the back button now scripted, so we're gonna basically do the same thing on the back button. We're gonna go to the shop icon. We're gonna copy the whole entire script, go to the back text actor, and we're gonna paste the script here. All we're gonna do is change 10.25 to be 0, so it's just gonna change it back to the original x value. So if we test this, once we press it, it takes you to the shop, and once you press back, it takes you back to the tappings area. So we've made that work now. Now we're gonna actually make the buttons in the shop actually function. To do that, we're first gonna go to the plus one, as this one is quite easy to do. So because we have to tap on the icon to buy it, we're going to use the same thing as we use in the button, the if message equals action, copy that and paste it here. And then we're going to create a second if function because we added a cost to this. So this costs 100 taps. So we're going to say if deck variables taps So we're just checking the deck variable tabs to measure it if it matches this condition. I'm going to say if deck variable tabs is greater or equal than, and this just makes sure if it's higher or the same amount as the certain amount we want it to be. And then we're gonna say 100 and then say then after. So basically what is going on here, it goes through on message, checks if the message is action, then it checks if the deck variable tabs is greater than or equal to 100, and now it's gonna function the process. What it's just modifying the deck variable add to be +1. To do this, we're just gonna say deck variable add is equal to the same thing, deck variable add +1. What basically just adds 1 to the deck variable add, and that's all we need to do here, because every single time someone buys this, it's gonna add 1 to the deck variable. But we also want to take away the money that they spent now, so we're gonna take away the tabs by saying deck variable tabs equal deck variable tabs plus -1. And we're doing plus -1 because it adds a negative number, what lowers the actual variable, and not -1, -100, because the cost is 100. So we take away 100 tabs. Then after that, we can just end everything. So now we're gonna make the multiplier, what is basically the same thing. So we're just gonna copy and then paste it onto the multiplier button. And we're just gonna change a few variables here and there. So we want to make the cost to the cost we made the multiplier originally. What is 1,000? So we're gonna add another 0, and we're gonna change this add variable to be multi, as we made the variable name multi or multiplier, and then say multi again, and just adds 1 to multi, which just makes the multiplier higher by 1 times every single time. And then we're gonna remove 1,000 tabs as it is costed 1,000. And then for the auto clicker, it's gonna be a bit different, but basically we're just gonna go onto the auto clicker button, and it's gonna be this same thing. We're gonna add 1 to the variable auto. So we made the auto clicker 500. So I make this 500. We change the multi now to auto, as that's the variable name. Change it to -500. But now the different thing is we needed to add a certain variable every 1 second. So we need to go back to the button now, and then this is a separate function we're gonna have to make. We're gonna, just to make it more organized, make a few spaces, and we're gonna create a new function now. This function is gonna be onCreate and then brackets, and we say onCreate because this is gonna be always repeating, but as the auto variable is 0 from the start, it doesn't do anything to the actual tabs. Once it changes, then it adds something every single time it repeats. So that's what we're gonna be doing. First, we need to make the repeat cycle. To do this, we're gonna say the action castle.repeat at interval, and repeat.interval, it just repeats at the rates you said. So repeat at interval, then you're gonna do brackets, and then you're gonna say how often you want it to repeat. I'm gonna say 1 second, but you can lower it and say 0.1 seconds every 0.1 seconds, or it'll be faster, or you can make it 5 every 5 seconds, or it'll be slower. But I'm gonna make it 1. I'm gonna put a comma here, and then now we're gonna press enter a few times. What we're gonna do now is put a function inside of this action, and it's gonna be the function that we're gonna be repeating. So we're gonna say function. There's not gonna be a named function. We're just doing a specific action now. So function, double brackets, you're gonna enter again. And now we're gonna write the function, what's gonna be. All we're doing is modifying tabs to be +1 of the auto variable, or whatever the auto variable will be. So we're gonna say deck variables tabs equals deck variable tabs plus the deck variable auto. So this just adds the variable auto to tabs every 1 second, as we said here. But now we need to close this castle repeat interval function. So we're gonna put end here and just say end, and as you can see, the bracket is at the end here. It just means everything with inside the brackets. So this is the opening and the closing. All of this is within the repeat interval action, and this is getting repeated. So after we say ends with bracket, then we're going to end the on create, and that will work now. So to test the multiplier and the auto clicker, we're going to get to 100 here, and I'll get enough currency if I just quickly cheat and I change my tabs to, let's say, 999 just for testing now. If we go into the shop, we can first test out the auto clicker. So as you can see, 500. Once we tap it, 500 goes away, and as you can see, 1 is getting added to our taps every second. We can tap it again, and then you'll be able to see 2 is getting added every second. So even though we didn't have any taps, it doesn't do anything because the auto is 0 as its base value. Now for the multiplier, we can tap it for 1000, and usually it would be 1 every single time you tapped, but now 1 times 2 is 2. It's going to add 2 every single time you tap. But the thing with multiplier and add taps, the more you increase the add taps, the more the multiplier effect will greaten. And the more you increase the multiplier, the more the add taps effect will greaten. So if you buy some add taps, now it is 4 for add taps, which will be 1 plus 4, what is 5, and that times 2, so it'll be 10 every single time you tap. So now that all those systems work, we're going to make the last final system, what is the leaderboard. So for the leaderboard button, we're going to take the same thing for when it's tapped, copy and paste that onto the leaderboard button, and then now we need to do a multitude of things. But first, once it is tapped, the leaderboard has to show the leaderboard. So we're going to say here castle.show leaderboard, and we're going to make brackets, and now we have to put in a few parameters. What is first the name of the variable we're going to show the leaderboard of, and that variable is going to be taps. So you're going to say taps within quotation marks because it's basically a string. Then it's a comma, space, again in quotation marks. We're going to say high because this just is the order at what it shows. So if you were to say, let's say low, it'll start from the lowest variable on the leaderboard downwards. So whoever has the lowest gets the highest placement. But for taps, we're going to say high because whoever has the highest amount of taps is going to have the highest placement on the leaderboard. And then we're going to make the last parameter, which is just going to be the name of the section within the leaderboard. I'm going to name it taps. It's just going to show on the leaderboard, you'll see of what the specific currency is on the leaderboard. And after that, you're going to press enter. You can say end and then end this off. So now that will show you the leaderboard, but we also want to save the variable to the leaderboard. So your variable will be on the leaderboard and is synced with the leaderboard basically when you're playing and things like that. So we're going to create a new function for that. We're going to say function again. And we're going to use onUpdate. The onUpdate function is a built-in function that just repeats basically at a very fast frequency by typing DT. And DT, basically DT is just a frequency that it goes, and it'll stay very similar depending on the person's frame rate or anything like that. Let's say like someone's playing on an older phone or a newer phone, they'll have the same rate at what the onUpdate repeats at depending on the device. That's why you don't use a specific number within the brackets. So onUpdate is basically every few seconds it's going to do this function, and what we need to do is save a variable to the leaderboard. We're going to be saving the taps variable to the leaderboard because it's a taps leaderboard. So we're going to use the action castle.write capital to capital again leaderboard, and then we're going to do brackets. For this we don't need much parameters, we just need one. What is the variable name and the specific variable we're saving to the leaderboard, and make sure it's within quotation marks. Then we're going to say end because all this is doing is just constantly saving the taps variable to leaderboard. So now to test this on our actual deck, we're going to just modify the taps to normal. And to see the leaderboard, if you just play it now, once you tap the leaderboard, it won't show the amount, but you can see the leaderboard that you created. You can X out and tap on it. There's no amounts even if you tap because this is locally. And to actually see the variables to make sure everything works normally, we can go out of our deck and then tap on the top here. Then we're going to change it from private to be unlisted, so anyone who has a link can play the deck. So basically, to do this, we have to publish the game. Then we're going to say no sensitive content. Then we're going to press share the deck. There's many other ways you can do it. This is the way I do it though. You're going to copy the link. I'm just going to paste it into a random notepad so you can actually tap the link. So I'm going to tap the link, and now it will send you to the unlisted deck that you have. And now once we tap for a bit and we check the leaderboard, you can see your amount of taps is synced with the leaderboard. And if we tap again, because we're the only person on the leaderboard, we have the highest, what is 20. And the last thing we're going to do is add sound effects. To do this, there's no way to specifically do it on scripts, but we're just going to do an easy workaround by pressing on the actor and say when it's tapped, it will send the message to script, but then after that it's going to play sound, and we're just going to use the built-in play sound feature here. And then you can just change and get sounds for specific actors. So this one is when the button's tapped, it's going to make this sound, and then we can go on to every single other actor and just add a new sound effect to them. So I'm going to quickly add different sound effects to all the actors. So now I added a sound effect to all the actors, and now when you tap the sound effects, and once you go to the shop you can buy something, I also added sound effects for that. And that is how to make a castle game by using mostly scripts. And if you want to learn any more about castle, I suggest going to castle docs. I link this in the description, but basically this is just where you can see a lot of things about castle, and there's guides, references for the normal game. But if you scroll down, there is a certain part for scripts. You can see the intros to scripts, tutorials, and other things here. So that'll be today's tutorial. Thank you guys so much for watching. If there were any mistakes or things that could be done better, please comment down below. I'll see you guys next time, and bye bye.